Today's presentation is going to be on the non-compete clause. As you can see here, there's an example of a document of a non-compete agreement, and there's the different parts there that I will be covering today. When you share ideas and business practices with employees, partners, and contractors, a non-compete agreement helps make sure the people you work with don't end up becoming or working for the competition. There are some different scenarios in which you may want to use a non-compete agreement. If an employee and employer are terminating their relationship, so that means the employee is quitting, getting fired, or laid off, the employer asks that the employee will not compete against him in a new setting. Also, if a company and a consultant or an independent contractor are terminating their relationship, the company will request that the consultant not compete against them in a new setting. And finally, when two business parties are separating ways, then they will make this agreement not to compete against each other. There are some other names for the non-compete agreement, and those include the non-compete clause as well as covenant not to compete. A non-compete agreement is a contract between two parties where one party agrees not to compete with the other for a period of time. The agreement is often entered into at the end of employment or the end of a business relationship, as I've explained. But it can also be a precondition to a business relationship. Some employees have to sign a non-compete agreement when they apply for a job. The agreement lessens the possibility that knowledge gained by an employee or business partner will be used in the future to compete against them. In exchange for not competing, the party is paid a fee. In most cases, the non-compete agreement would prevent someone who signed it from competing directly or from working with a competitor. This agreement outlines the duration of the agreement, any geographical limitations, and what subjects or markets it covers. Now we're going to cover the basic elements of a non-compete agreement. First is the agreement effective date. This is the date on which the agreement will start protecting the protected party, which is the party requesting the non-compete agreement, from the non-competing party, which is the party that is prohibited from working for a competitor of the protected party. Then, the names and addresses of both parties are included. Next, a reason must be stated for the non-compete agreement. For example, one reason may be, this engineer is working for a certain company but will be leaving the company, and therefore we don't want him to compete against us. The time period must also be stated, and this is the time during which the non-competing party is prohibited from working as a competitor or for a competitor. For example, 2 years. To be enforceable, this time frame must be reasonable. The geographic area for the non-compete clause must also be included. This may be one particular state, just California or all of Idaho, or within a specific distance from a named city, 30 miles from New York City. You may also describe the geographic location in major detail. The north suburban area of Chicago, from Chicago city limits on the south to the northern lake line of Lake County on the north, and Illinois Toll Road 294 on the west, and Lake Michigan on the east. As you can tell, that's very specific, but it all must be reasonable given the protected party's market. You must also include how the non-competing party must be compensated. It will be money, otherwise known as consideration as we call it in the contract world, and this will be paid to the non-competing party for it to be enforceable. You can choose any amount of payment, for example, $1,500, that seems fair, or you may also make multiple payments at any interval, for example, $100 an hour or $5,000 per year. Individuals who will be signing the contract must obviously be included. This should be limited to the people who have authority to sign the agreement and have it be binding on the business entity or individual. In order to make a non-compete agreement legally binding, both parties will need to sign it. You do not need witnesses to the signing, nor do you need to have the signatures notarized. There are also some optional terms that you could add to your agreement. For example, the non-competing party will be prohibited from soliciting protected parties' customers or clients. They will also be prohibited from hiring protected party employees, and they can be prohibited from disclosing the protected party's confidential information. Generally, a non-compete agreement must be reasonable in its terms and include consideration in order to be enforceable. However, some states may only allow limited use of non-compete agreements. For example, in California, there's a law that says non-compete agreements are not enforceable against employees. They may, however, be enforceable against stakeholders in the business. Reasonableness is usually determined by the courts and is based on the facts of each individual case. Primary attention is given to geographic scope and duration of the non-compete, as well as the type of activities that the ex-employee is prohibited from. Many non-compete clauses also include a severability clause, which states that if any term is determined to be illegal or unenforceable, the remaining terms of the agreement are still valid and enforceable. This differs from the other contracts we've studied, where if one or more terms are illegal, the whole contract is voided and the parties must reform their contract. One example I want to share comes from the job I've had this summer. I work at a bakery called Those Guys Bakery, and recently our rent was raised by $1,000 a month because the landlords thought we were doing too well in business. So naturally, we decided to look for a place to move, and the owners of Those Guys found a place they loved next to a Jewel. However, because the Jewel has a bakery in it, they have a non-compete clause in their contract. So we were unable to move to that location, and we had to find a new location to move to. I hope this all has been informative for you, and I'd like to end with a catchy song on non-compete clauses.